You are standing at the top of Bray Hill. The road falls away in front of you, like the edge of the world, a steep ribbon of tarmac with stone walls on one side and the front gardens of ordinary houses on the other. Then a man on a superbike comes over the crest at more than 180 miles per hour. The front wheel skims the road. The engine screams off the brickwork on both sides. He is inches from the curb, inches from the houses, and there is no gravel trap here, no soft barrier, no run off of any kind. If he gets this wrong, there is only the wall. This is the Isle of Man, a small island sitting in the middle of the Irish Sea between England and Ireland. And this little island hosts what many people consider the most dangerous race on Earth. Since 1907, well over 200 riders have lost their lives chasing a single fast lap of this course. Well over 200. And here is the part that many outsiders struggle to understand. Every single year, they come back. They know the numbers better than you do. Many of them have stood at funerals for their friends, their teammates, their brothers, their own fathers. And still they pull on the leathers, line up at the start on Glencrutchery Road, and disappear down Bray Hill into the unknown. So the question this whole film is going to try to answer is a simple one. Why would anyone do this? And why will nobody stop them? To understand the riders, you first have to understand the road. Because at the Isle of Man TT, the road is everything. The course is called the Snaefell Mountain Course, and it is almost 38 miles long. Read that again, because it matters. Most motorcycle races in the world happen on a purpose-built circuit of 2 or 3 miles, with wide tarmac, soft barriers, and acres of gravel to catch you when you fall. The mountain course is none of that. It is closed-off public roads. The same roads where, the week before, people drove to work and dropped their kids at school. There are over 200 corners on a single lap. There are villages, hedges, telegraph poles, bridges, farm gates, and pavements where spectators stand close enough to touch the bikes as they pass. And the riders are not crawling through it. They average over 130 miles per hour for the entire lap, mountain section included. On the fastest straight, the long blast through Solby, they exceed 200 miles per hour. 200 miles per hour down a country road, between dry stone walls, with a hedge on one side and somebody's living room window on the other. The course climbs from sea level all the way up the side of Snaefell Mountain, the highest point on the island, where the weather can turn from sunshine to thick gray fog in the space of a mile. There are sections every rider knows by heart and speaks about with something close to fear. Bray Hill, the terrifying downhill plunge right after the start, where the leaders are flat out and the suspension bottoms out so hard the whole bike goes light. Balov Bridge, a little humpback bridge in the middle of a village where the bikes launch into the air like something out of motocross, often leaving the ground completely, the most photographed moment of the entire event. Craigney Ba, a fast downhill sweep toward Douglas past a famous old pub packed with fans. The Veranda, Windy Corner, Halewood's Height, the very top of the mountain. Every name on that list is a place where somebody has been brilliant, and many of them are places shadowed by tragedy. That is the deal here, and nobody hides it. The beauty and the danger are the same thing. You cannot have one without the other. So how many have actually died? And here is where the story gets uncomfortable, because the honest answer is that even the experts argue about the number. The very first man to die was an English rider named Victor Surridge. It was 1911, the year the race moved on to the full mountain course, and Surridge crashed during practice at a corner called Glen Helen. He never raced that week. He died preparing for it. From that day to this one, the toll has climbed and climbed. The reason the number is disputed is that people count different things. If you only count the tourist trophy event itself, the famous fortnight in late May and early June, the figure sits at around 157 riders. But the same Deadliest Mountain Course also hosts other races through the year, like the Manx Grand Prix and the Classic TT. Add all of those competitors together, every soul lost racing on that ribbon of road, and the number climbs to more than 270. Add in the sidecar passengers, the marshals, and the spectators who have been killed over the decades, and you pass 280. So when people say the Isle of Man TT has killed more than 260 riders, they are not exaggerating. If anything, depending on how you count, they are being kind. This is, by a distance, the deadliest race in the world. Few events in modern motorsport come anywhere close, which makes the obvious question even louder. If this road is so lethal, why on earth was it ever allowed to start? And the answer takes us back over 100 years. It began, of all things, because of a speed limit. In the early 1900s, mainland Britain had strict limits that made proper motor racing on public roads almost impossible. But the Isle of Man was self-governing, with its own parliament called Tynwald, and the island was happy to close its roads and let the machines run. So in 1907, the first tourist trophy races were held here. Back then, the bikes were fragile, slow by today's standards, and the riders wore little more than caps and goggles and tweed. But something about this place got into people's blood almost immediately. The challenge of taming nearly 38 miles of real road, of memorizing every corner, every bump, every change in camber, became the ultimate test of a motorcyclist. Luck alone could never carry you around the mountain course. You had to know the road the way you know the walk from your bed to your front door in the dark. Over the following decades, the TT grew into the most prestigious motorcycle race on the planet, and the greatest names in the sport came to prove themselves on it. Jeff Duke, John Surtees, the Italian master Giacomo Agostini, and a young man from a place called Ballymoney in Northern Ireland who would become the most beloved racer the island has ever seen. His name was Joey Dunlop. If this film has a heart, it is the Dunlop family. So let me tell you about Joey, because to understand the TT, you have to understand him. Joey Dunlop was born in 1952, one of 7 children in a small cottage in rural Northern Ireland where money was tight and running water was a luxury. He was quiet, shy, almost painfully ordinary off the bike. He drank pints in the local pub. He fixed his own machines in a cramped garage. He hated fuss and attention and being treated like a star. And he was, very simply, the greatest road racer who ever lived. Joey won the Isle of Man 26 times. 26. For nearly a quarter of a century, that record stood untouched, a number people assumed would never be beaten. He won 5 world titles in motorcycle road racing's Formula One series. He won the Ulster Grand Prix and the Northwest 200 over and over. And he did it all in his trademark yellow helmet and red shirt, with so little ego that fans loved him not in spite of his shyness, but because of it. He felt like one of them. He felt like the bloke from down the road who happened to be a genius on a motorcycle. But the thing people remember most about Joey was not the winning. It was what he did when nobody asked him to. In the early 1990s, while war and poverty gripped parts of Eastern Europe, Joey Dunlop quietly loaded up his race van with food, clothing, and toys and drove it himself alone all the way to orphanages in Romania and Bosnia. No press, no cameras, no announcement. He just did it because children were suffering and he had a van. When word eventually got out, he was awarded the OBE for his humanitarian work, on top of the MBE he had already received for his racing. He was uncomfortable with both. And then, on the 2nd of July, in the year 2000, the news broke that nobody was ready for. Joey Dunlop was racing a small 125 cubic centimeter bike in a minor event in Tallinn, Estonia, in the wet. He was leading, because of course he was, and on a rain-soaked corner he lost the front and struck the trees at the side of the road. He was killed instantly. He was 48 years old. The island went silent. When his funeral was held back in Ballymoney, an estimated 50,000 people came. 50,000. Bikers rode from every corner of Britain and Ireland to line the roads and stand in the rain and say goodbye to a man most of them had never met. To this day, the 26th milestone on the mountain course is simply called Joey's in his honor. He once said he never wanted to be a superstar, that he just wanted to be himself, and he hoped that was how people would remember him. They did. They still do. You might think that losing Joey, the king, the gentle giant of the whole sport, would be the moment the family walked away from the roads forever. It was not, because the Dunlop story was only just beginning, and what came next is almost too painful to believe. Joey had a younger brother. His name was Robert Dunlop, and he was a phenomenal rider in his own right, a record 15-time winner of the Northwest 200. Robert had already survived a horrific crash at the TT back in 1994 that smashed his body so badly he spent 6 months in hospital and was left with one leg shorter than the other. Most men would have quit. Robert came back and kept winning. Then, on the 15th of May 2008, just 8 years after losing his brother Joey, Robert Dunlop was practicing for the Northwest 200 when his engine seized at high speed. The bike threw him off. Robert was killed, and his two sons, William and Michael, came upon the aftermath on that road. Michael, just 19 years old, has spoken about holding his father's hand and praying he would be all right. Now here is the part that tells you everything about this family and about why the rest of the world struggles so hard to understand them. Robert's funeral was days away. The race organizers, out of concern, ruled that his grieving sons should not compete. William and Michael did not accept that. They forced their way onto the grid anyway. And 2 days after watching his father die on that stretch of tarmac, 19-year-old Michael Dunlop won the race. He crossed the line, broke down in tears, and dedicated the victory to his dad. There is footage of it, and it is one of the most emotional things you will ever see in any sport, anywhere. If you are finding this story as gripping as I do, take 1 second to subscribe. Channels like this one only survive because of you, and there are so many more of these incredible stories to tell. Now back to the Dunlops, because the family had still not finished paying. 10 years later, in 2018, it happened again. William Dunlop, Robert's elder son, the quiet, thoughtful one, had actually pulled out of that year's TT to be at home with his partner Janine, who was pregnant with their second child. He was racing instead at a smaller event in Ireland, the Skerries 100, when his bike lost grip in practice and he crashed. William was killed. He left behind a little girl named Ella, and a second daughter who would be born after his death and never meet her father. He was buried beside his dad, Robert, and his uncle, Joey. 3 generations of one family lost to the roads they loved, lying side by side. And that brings us to Michael Dunlop, the boy who won 2 days after his father died, is still racing today. And he has become, by every measure, the most successful Isle of Man TT rider in the history of the event. He matched Joey's untouchable record of 26 wins, and then he went past it. By 2026, Michael had pushed the record to 36 victories, a full 10 clear of the uncle everyone said could never be beaten. He has won on Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Ducati, and Peyton machinery, on bikes of every size and shape, which is almost unheard of. And yet, when people tell Michael he is now better than Joey, he refuses it flatly. He has said he is no better than Joey, that he never was, that he has no intention of being better than him, but that everyone in the sport has always aspired to beat that number. He has also been brutally honest about what drives him. He has written that death itself made him the man he is. The loss of his father, the win the day before the funeral, the weight of carrying the family name forward. And in the most heartbreaking line of all, he has said he would give it all up tomorrow, every single trophy and record, just to have his dad back for one more day. So sit with that for a moment. This family has given the Isle of Man an uncle, a father, and a brother. And the last man standing chooses, freely, to keep doing the exact thing that took them, which forces the real question at the center of this entire story. Why? What could a road possibly give a person that is worth all of that? To answer it, you have to stop listening to the people who watch from a distance and start listening to the riders themselves. Because they have an answer, and it is not the one most people expect. It is not that they want to die, it is the opposite. They say this is where they feel most alive. Listen to Guy Martin, the truck mechanic turned road racer and television presenter, a man who has stood on the TT podium 17 times, but famously never won. In 2010, Guy crashed at a corner called Ballagharay at around 170 miles per hour, and his bike burst into a fireball. He should not have walked away. He did. And afterwards, instead of swearing off the place, he talked about the strange intensity of that moment between crashing and almost dying. He said the buzz from it was simply unbeatable, and that if the sport were completely safe, he would not do it at all. From his hospital bed, he put it as plainly as anyone ever has. He said it is part of the game, that they all know the risks, that nobody is making them do anything. Put him in the same position again, he said, and he would do exactly the same thing. Listen to Peter Hickman, the man who holds the outright lap record around the mountain course, an astonishing average of over 136 miles per hour for an entire lap of public road. Hickman has said that you can only really appreciate life when you put yourself in a place that risks it. He talks about racing straight through the middle of a village, past the houses and the pubs and the people, and feeling like he should not be allowed to do this, and then remembering that somehow here he is. And listen to John McGuinness, 23-time winner, the man they call the King of the Mountain, who has been racing this course since 1996. McGuinness is the philosopher of the paddock, the one who has lost the most friends and thought the hardest about it. He says that if you are genuinely reckless here, if you are not in complete control of your own fear, you last about 5 minutes and then you are gone. The mountain weeds out the careless almost instantly. He has spoken with unusual honesty about mortality, about knowing that luck cannot last forever, and he keeps going anyway because to him, this place is simply too special to give up. Notice what none of them are saying. None of them say they have a death wish. None of them say they are not afraid. They are terrified, all of them, and they will tell you so. What they describe is something rarer. A relationship with risk, so honest, so fully chosen, that it sharpens every other thing in life into focus. For these riders, the danger is not a bug, it is the entire point. It is the price of feeling something most of us will never feel. Which leads us finally to the question in the title. If this race kills riders almost every year and everybody knows it, why does nobody stop it? Why is it still legal? The honest answer has 3 parts, and the first one is the most important. Nobody stops it because the riders do not want it stopped. This is not a case of helpless victims being fed into a machine. These are grown adults, fully informed, who fight for the right to do this. When you try to ban a sport to protect people who are begging you not to, you run into a wall that has nothing to do with safety and everything to do with freedom. The sport tried the alternative once. Back in the 1970s, the TT counted toward the Motorcycle World Championship, which meant the world's top professionals were more or less obliged to race it, whether they liked the risk or not. After his close friend Gilberto Parlati was killed here in the wet in 1972, the great Giacomo Agostini led a riders' boycott and vowed never to return. By 1976, the TT had lost its world championship status. And here is the fascinating part. The race did not die. Freed from the obligation, it simply became a pure festival of road racing for the people who genuinely wanted it, and it has thrived in exactly that form ever since. Take away the pressure, and the love remained. The second part of the answer is that the island has worked relentlessly to make the race as safe as a thing this dangerous can possibly be. They will not run the race on fully wet or unsafe roads. Sessions get delayed, shortened, or canceled until the clerk of the course judges the roads raceable, and they only race when the medical helicopter is able to fly. Riders wear airbag suits now, and vastly better helmets. There is a modern safety system with a digital red flag network, cameras on the most dangerous sections, fast response medical cars, GPS tracking on every rider, and roadside critical care doctors who bring the emergency room to the patient instead of waiting for the patient to reach the hospital. The man who helped run that medical operation previously led London's air ambulance. The organizers will tell you with justification that the TT now has some of the most sophisticated trauma cover in all of motorsport. None of it makes the race safe. It just means that when the worst happens, every possible thing is already in place. That is the most you can do with a road like this, and they do all of it. The third part is the one people are least comfortable saying out loud, but it is true. The Isle of Man TT is the island. It is woven into the place's identity in a way that is hard to exaggerate. For 2 weeks, an island of around 85,000 people swells with tens of thousands of visitors and motorcycles from every corner of the world. Families rent out their spare rooms, schools break for half-term. Over 2,000 local volunteers give up their time to stand at the side of the road as marshals, the unpaid human infrastructure without whom none of it could happen. And the island's official visitor survey put the event's economic impact at tens of millions of pounds, around £37.5 million in a single year. The TT is, in the island's own words, the most recognizable thing it has. You cannot simply switch that off. It is not a sporting fixture on the island. It is the island. But none of that means the danger has gone anywhere. It has not. And the last few years have driven that home with brutal force. In 2022, the TT returned after a long pandemic break, and it became the deadliest fortnight the event had seen in over 50 years. 6 competitors lost their lives that year. Among them was a man named Davey Morgan, 52 years old, a much-loved veteran who had raced almost every TT since 2002. And among them, most heartbreakingly, were a father and son. Roger Stockton and his 21-year-old son Bradley, racing together as a sidecar crew, were both killed in the same crash. Father and son, gone in the same moment, doing the thing they loved most, together. The following year, in 2023, a Spanish rider named Raúl Torres Martinez was killed. He was a serving police officer back home and the fastest Spaniard ever to lap the course. He died only hours after setting the best lap of his entire life. That is the cruelty of this place. It will give you the greatest moment of your career and take everything from you on the very same day. And then, something remarkable happened. The 2024 TT passed with no fatalities at all. And so did the 2025 TT. 2 years, back to back, where every rider who lined up went home. For the first time in a long time, people allowed themselves to wonder whether all those safety advances were finally, genuinely bending the curve, whether you really could have the beauty without paying the old price. The mountain answered that question in 2026. During qualifying that year, a 33-year-old debutant named Daniel Ingham was killed, and he was no reckless newcomer. He had a decade of experience on that mountain course, and he had actually won the Senior Manx Grand Prix only 2 years earlier. He knew the road, he had earned his place on it, and it took him anyway. That same week, after a serious crash, the entire sidecar class was suspended for the event, and a separate incident left several spectators injured. 2 quiet years, and then a sharp, devastating reminder that this road forgives nothing and never has. So we come back to where we started at the top of Bray Hill, watching a man drop into the abyss at 180 miles per hour. And maybe now it looks a little different. Because the easy story, the one outsiders always tell, is that the Isle of Man TT is a senseless tragedy that should have been banned decades ago, that these riders are throwing their lives away on a stretch of road for nothing. But that is not what the riders see, and it is not what the families who have lost the most see either. They see something harder and more beautiful than that. They see men and women choosing, with their eyes wide open, to test themselves against one of the greatest challenges in all of sport. Not because they are blind to the cost, but because they believe the meaning they find out there is worth facing it. The Dunlops gave that road 3 of their own, and the last of them still goes back, not because he has forgotten what it cost, but because he understands exactly what it is worth. Joey said he just wanted to be remembered as himself. Guy Martin said nobody was making him do anything. Michael said he would trade it all for one more day with his dad, and then he climbed back on the bike. Nobody will stop the Isle of Man TT. Not because the people in charge do not care about the dead. They do, deeply. They will stop it the day the riders stop wanting it. And for now, the riders have made it clear that day has not yet come. This is the price they have chosen to pay for the most sacred and dangerous beauty in all of sport. The least the rest of us can do is try to understand it. If this story moved you, do me a favor and like the video and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Tell me in the comments, do you think a race this dangerous should be allowed to continue? Or have these riders earned the right to make that choice themselves? I genuinely want to know what you think. Ride safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.